You know what I think about exactly 0% of the time is Zionism. You know what I actually do think about? This goal to like implement Sharia law all throughout the United States. I mean, we have this like growing effort. In Texas, we've seen it. In fact, it's on the ballot March 3rd when I'm on the ballot. And it's this effort.
What's the ballot?
The primary election in Texas.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant Sharia law.
March 3rd. I was like,
no, it's on the ballot.
But they have put on the ballot March 3rd an effort to ban the implementation of Sharia law in Texas because we have entire Islamic communities that are popping up wanting to build enclaves where they don't follow U.S. law. They want to follow Sharia law.
Do you disagree with that?
Of course I disagree with that.
With only Muslims or all communities?
Sharia law is incompatible with our laws.
No, I'm saying...
And that culture is incompatible with our culture.
No, so I'm talking about when religions that aren't Christian create maybe enclaves where people from that specific religion are in a specific area and maybe they follow their own practices more than anything else. Are you against that? Or is it just Muslims you're against?
What I'm against is laws that are incompatible with U.S. law. I am unaware of other communities that have laws that are incompatible with our Constitution.
Like what?
But I am very familiar with the laws that are incompatible with our Constitution within Sharia. So and by the way, this is not my opinion. This is most people in Texas. I talk to a lot of people. I'm running for office, so this is something that is very worrisome. And so this like notion that it's no big deal, and you're for America. Yeah, I'm sure you're for America. You love America because there's more money here than anywhere else in the world. It is fertile ground. The communists have been working on America for 60 or 70 years, trying to strip God and Christianity from our society, which of course makes it fertile ground for the Islamists to come in and capture those people. So that's what's happening, and we're all waking up to it. We have 2 elected officials in our state legislature in Texas who are from Islamic backgrounds, and what do? Of course, they're not like singing patriotic songs about America. They're pushing laws that glorify Islam in Texas.
Like what?
All kinds of recognitions and so.
I don't get it.
Well, I would say some aspects of Sharia law is good, like women not driving. And I mean, it's not.
That's not in Sharia, but if it was, it would be good.
Okay, I thought that was.
Well, the only countries that forbade women from driving were, of course, Muslim majority countries. Saudi Arabia just gave them the right to drive like 10 years ago.
It's not in Islam, but it's a good thing.
But I'm glad you said that. Let me say something. Right. Let me say something quickly, and then I'll let you respond. You spoke for 5 minutes. Give me 30 seconds.
No, because there's 2 of you see, so I'm basically having to respond to both of you. So in terms of what you said, the thing is, why I asked about the enclave question, and I think you struggle to answer the question, is because what you're basically demonstrating is your single-minded focus isn't consistency. Because if you were consistent, I would respect that. I would be like, look, this makes sense. He's been consistent across the board. But what you're basically single-minded focused on Islam, probably because it may help with your political career. Because in reality, when you look at it, for example, Tyler something, whatever his name is, podcaster, he just came out with a documentary. Tyler Oliveira, who came out with a documentary in New York where the Hasidic community, 99.9% kind of have an enclave. And by the way, I don't have any issues with this. If someone wants to practice a religion, I've got no problem with it. But my point is they practice their own religion. They have 10, 11 children. They get a lot of welfare. They practice for example, strict Judaism. And apparently, if you're not, according to his documentary, again, we need to verify this because because a lot of times, like I said, there is misinformation. I don't know if there is on this one, but what he said is that it's even very difficult for white Christians or white people to even get accommodation for rent in that place. So that demonstrates an enclave. So what it demonstrates a lack of consistency when you say that. The second thing is Sharia law is not coming to the United States of America. This is why I asked the question, because you weren't able to basically demonstrate how it was, because there's no instance where Sharia law has overtaken the United States of America. The Constitution supersedes. Actually, there was in one incident where, but obviously probably not an issue for you because you're single focused, but there was one issue where there was one religious law that overtook the legal ruling of the United States of America. You know what that was? That was halakha law, which was basically there was a case, I believe it was called Evictus versus Evictus or victim versus victim. I can't remember exactly. And what it was is there was a judgment made within the Jewish courts, same as the Sharia courts. And what happened was that ruling whatever the decision was made that superseded whatever the court had decided, and so they took that on board. So that's the only instance in the United States of America when that's happened. So this claim that Sharia law is taken over, again, is propaganda, because where is this happening? Now, is this cities...
I didn't say it was taking over. What I said is that they are trying to implement Sharia law in Muslim-only enclaves. And like I said, at the very beginning, Epic.
They're building a thing called Epic City.
What's the Sharia law in it? That's what I'm trying to ask.
Well,
I understand about Epic. They're trying to create an enclave or a community. I know
correct.
That,
a Muslim-only Sharia-compliant community. I mean, they've stated that is their goal.
And what's the Sharia part of it that conflicts with the what they're trying to implement? What part of the Sharia are they trying to implement that conflicts with U.S. law? This is what I'm asking. I genuinely don't know.
I think all Sharia is incompatible with U.S. law.
So all Sharia. So, for example, a marriage, husband and wife getting married, that's against Sharia law. Or, for example, praying to God. You believe that that's against Sharia law? The thing is, Sharia law...
Well, does Sharia law mandate that you pray to God? Because our Constitution does not mandate that you pray to God.
No, so Sharia law is just like Christianity, right? So you can pray and you cannot pray. And if you don't pray, obviously Muslims, Jews, and Christians believe that if you're not praying to God, you're going to be sinful, whatever it may be. And so what is Sharia law? Sharia law, largely speaking, what is it? It's practicing, right? You'll pray, you'll fast. Shabbos mentioned that he fasts almost every day or something, or every other day. And so you may be able to...
You're welcome to join me.
No, Muslims do it as well, right? They do it like 30 days in a year, and so, some do it, if they're more religious, they'll do it twice a week or whatever it may be. Now, you would say maybe
that's probably something I can get on board with.
Yeah.
I probably need to eat less.
Oh, okay, so now you're saying you'd get on board with Sharia law.
So now you convinced him you want Sharia law.
Yeah. No, okay, but the point
can I respond?
Yeah.
Okay, I get the point you're making, but you're confusing two very separate court systems in the United States. One is voluntary participation in religious councils, but we've had that really since the 1700s. So we have Catholic tribunals. We have what you're referring to. It's not halakha. It's called halacha. It's a beis-din. But it's called a beis-din.
No, but what's the
halacha?
Halacha.
Oh, yeah, so that
I didn't do that.
Exactly. Once you circumcise, you automatically gain the ability to say cha. So halacha is Jewish law, but again, we've had voluntary participation in religious councils again since the 1700s. I think we've actually had them since before the establishment of the United States. But that's very, very different than what you were talking about. So again, you have Catholic tribunals, you have in Jewish law it's called a beis-din, and you do have Islamic councils as well. Yeah. That, to be fair, though, we both know that is very different than Sharia law, but I digress. In terms of what let me get to my point. In terms of what you're referring to of this video of Kiryas Joel, Kiryas Joel is an incorporated city. It's part of Monroe County. Yes, it's true. There's a high concentration of Orthodox Jews there. It's also true that white Christians also live there. I've been to Kiryas Joel many times. You will find white Christians who live there as well. And I also have to say, and this might be a hot take, I'm forgetting his name, but the guy who wants to build a white Christian city in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, sure, whatever his name is, that should absolutely be allowed. I think the United States, we do build ourselves around voluntary participation. People should live in communities where they subscribe to the same values. Absolutely.
But he's got a problem with it. So.
Well, Bo is a very smart man, and he can talk about his own opinions and defend himself. Okay, but I'm talking about me, and I can only defend my opinions. In terms of what's happening, though, is you're trying to conflate what Nick Shirley did in Minneapolis with what this podcaster did in Kiryas Joel. I believe that we need to reform the welfare system in the United States. The fact of the matter is we obsess about foreign aid to Israel, for example, yet foreign aid comprises less than 1% of what the federal government spends every single year. What is a way bigger issue is how much we're spending on the military, which Trump now wants to spend $1.5 trillion. What is a way bigger issue is our entitlement program, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. So I agree. If we want to have a conversation on welfare, let's have the conversation. What you can't do, though, is conflate actual fraud where a Somali community in Minneapolis, like 90% of whom are on welfare and are also committing violations of federal law because they won't assimilate into a greater culture, and then a Hasidic community in New York who are simply legally using the legal tools at their disposal without using welfare. And again, welfare should be reformed. We should not have as many people on government handouts as we do today. But again, let's call a spade a spade. If you want to talk about Jewish participation in American life, Jews have been living...
Just respond to that point.
Sure.
Okay. So just on that, I think you make a fair point. But in terms of where the where the fraud is in New York, not this ultra-Orthodox community, but in New York, I did the research. There's a large number of Orthodox Jews who basically committed billions of dollars of fraud. Now, the reason why that's not been highlighted is specifically because in the United States of America, because media, because social media, because it's pushed through the algorithm, there's a specific direct focus on Islam. So therefore, I would say irrespective of where the fraud is, whether it's Minneapolis, which I need to look at it because I know some of them points that Nick Shirley made, they got debunked, but I need to look at all of it because I've not been through each individual point. Yep. But also, why is there that, I'm not talking about the Hasidic community, I'm talking specifically, even in New York, there was billions of dollars of fraud, but why has that not been highlighted? The reason it's not been highlighted is specifically because there is this specific focus, per what the Israeli Foreign Ministry said, focus on Islam, hate Muslims, attack them, and that's why there's this
let me make one point there, Shabbos, I'll let you go. You know, and I actually wrote this down, you know, I think a lot of this comes down to social engineering where they have to pit us against each other. And the reason why I say this is because, like, Shabbos, I know you'll probably say, like, Dave Smith is, like, a horrible person or, like, Nick Fuentes, this and that. But at the same exact time, you look at our history after World War II, we had Operation Paperclip that brought actual Nazis over. I mean, literal Nazis 100%. Like Werner von Braun, who, you know, built rockets that killed people in Poland. So I just find it crazy how... and then I look at, and part of the social engineering, you look at how we left Afghanistan and we left the Taliban. You know, they say we're the biggest threat, but then we leave them with like $1 billion worth of military equipment. So my point is, really, at the end of the day, the government doesn't really care about us. I think that they're pitting us against each other, and I guess
I agree with that. Yeah,
and that's why, really and truly, you guys probably wouldn't dislike each other that much. You guys probably actually have a lot more in common than you think. Yeah. But we're socially engineered to hate one another, and we both have, you know, there's some aspects of Judaism that, you know, people can be critical of, and maybe it's fair, and there's aspects of Islam that people can be critical, and that's fair. And so what that does is that makes us fight, and that's what they want us to do. So how do we, I guess, bring world peace or come together?
I agree with you. So I think that the government wants to do left, we right, black, we white, Muslim versus Christian, maybe Jews against everybody else, wherever it may be. And I think
Jews
that's
versus everybody else.
Jews versus the world.
Yes, Jews against the world. Yeah,
it's true. It's working.
They're running things. But anyway, coming back to, and I think that's done intentionally in order to cause division. I agree with you, amongst the working class, while the government continues to enrich itself. For example, you look at the economy, the stock market is being increased, so the wealthy get wealthier, the dollar is being weakened, the poor get poorer. So I agree with you. I think that's happening intentionally. I do think some of it is that they want to create this kind of Palantir control system in place, which, again, look at who's in charge of Palantir, but this Palantir control system in place, social credit score in place, and almost take the West down the route of these other countries that we just don't want.
So we've been battling communism and socialism, you know, for a long time here in America. That is certainly a growing thing. Is Palantir a problem? Probably not. I mean, they're very focused on military technology.
Yeah, but military technology gets used on us. I mean,
well, Palantir is also in making sure that ICE is able to do their job.
That's what they say too. But also, the next time we have a pandemic, it's going to be used to shut us down and take our credit cards off the system so we can't buy stuff.
Many of the
let
me bring
also have bad
correct,
aspects.
but that's a federal issue, less about an American company. And again, the solution to that is, because we live in a capitalist society, build a bear company. And that's kind of like my solution when it comes to, well, Jews have so much control of the media, which A, I disagree with, but B, if you really believe that's true. No, I say Jews have a disproportionate amount of power in the media, but they don't control the media. No one controls the media, because as your podcast demonstrates right now, or as Elon Musk said, we are the media. Anyone can do it. This is why I kind of get frustrated with Nick Fuentes and this demoralization of young people, is because if you constantly tell people that the Jews control Hollywood or the Zionists, whatever word you want to use that day, then A, it's not true, but B, more fundamentally, then build something. And I'm not talking about, when I said this before, a lot of the neo-Nazis on Twitter attacked me because they said, oh, he's attacking white Americans. I didn't say the word white American. I just said any American. If you truly believe that, like, I don't know, Disney is out to make your kids gay, which, sure, then build your own media company. And I mean that seriously. Like, build an entertainment industry, because that's what America is all about. It's about private enterprise. It's about competition. I do want to say very quickly to Alex's question.
People do that, though. They do try and create their own media. But as you know, like, there's a lot more barriers if you're not Zionist than you are Zionist. It's a lot more difficult.
There are barriers.
I'll give you my example.
Let me just make the point because you interrupted. Let me make the point because you interrupted. There are barriers, but that pertains to regulation. That pertains to an environment of government bureaucracy. So I agree we should get rid of red tape. We should get rid of regulation. That's why I'm a market capitalist. Let's call a spade a spade.
So, for example,
there is no law on the book. There is no policy that states if you are a Zionist or you're not a Zionist, then you don't have equal rights into a particular profession, which is why, for example,
I'm on X, right?
That's not true.
So let me give you an example. I'm on X. I'm quite a big account on X. I was super viral in 2024. If I hadn't been deboosted, if I hadn't had my blue check mark taken away because of my political opinion, I would be like 2 times bigger, right? So even though I've got 750,000, so that's an example of deboosted. So me and Laura Loomer, as an example, held the exact same opinion, right? We relayed the same idea on the same issue, but she got her blue check mark back and her monetization specifically because she's a Jewish Zionist. And so therefore, no, that is the case.
So how do you explain Jewish Zionists like myself who were also banned from X? I agree with you. Very briefly, I agree that private corporations have a right to do whatever they would like on their private corporation. And oftentimes it's pretty arbitrary. So I would agree with you on that. But if you really want to make the point that if you go on social media, it's pro-Zionist. I mean, come on, between you and me. In fact, one of the most viral clips of the last few days was a spliced up video of me saying that anti-Semites should be jailed for not liking Jews, which A, I didn't say.
You're not going to get me arrested after this.
Right, exactly, which A, I didn't say, B, I don't believe in, and C, let's call a spade a spade. Being anti-Israel is the most popular thing you could possibly do if you want to make a name for yourself. Have you not listened to Candace Owens recently or Tucker Carlson? All they talk about is Israel.
He's right. Being anti-Israel is the most popular position because the world is against Israel. They're just seeing what they saw in their time.
I agree with you. The world is against Israel, but that kind of refutes your claim, though, that it's in it for the Zionists. Because if you want to make money on Twitter or on social media, the best thing you could do is just talk about how the Jews, or the Zionists, how the Zionists control media.
That's not true, though.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.